I'm going to share a story about what I think is the absolute worst salary that a person can have. Absolute worst amount. I'm not talking about a business owner like you or an entrepreneur, but if you work for somebody else, okay, if you work for somebody else, this is what I call the prison salary. I've had many people work for me through the years in both business and sports. And now to me, I tell my daughter, whatever you do, I don't care if you're going to be a vet, I don't care if you're going to be a dog walker, I don't care if you're going to be a candlestick maker, I don't care what your dreams and goals are, just work for yourself. There's nothing wrong with learning the ropes, having mentors, paying your dues like we all have, but have that grand vision of running your own show. It never crossed my mind ever to work for somebody other than myself when I was an adult. I've washed windows. I had my own window washing company when I was 15. I had my first business when I was 12, my hockey camps. I've had tennis camps, and I've also had some ball busting jobs. I've done some construction, some ditch digging. I've worked at some restaurants, some bars. I worked for my dad for a year in the insurance business, reception, filing, cleaning the washrooms, cleaning toilets, learning the ropes in the hockey business as an assistant coach, unpaid assistant coach. So there's nothing wrong with paying the price and learning the business. In fact, it should be mandatory. But you gotta have that vision of living life and doing business on your own terms. It's not just about money. Money's important, but to me, my North Star is personal sovereignty. I keep telling my 11-year-old, if you want to live where you want to live, you want to do what you want to do, you want to wake up in the morning and do something that you enjoy, if you want to have freedom, independence, control, and autonomy, the only way is entrepreneurship. It's not easy, it's difficult, it's hard, and it's worth it. It's worth it. And for all the downside, the headaches and the challenges that come with running your own show, it's worth it. My grandfather ran a general store, it was worth it. My dad ran a general store before the insurance business, 14 hours a day, it was worth it. Even when those guys weren't making any money and they were working those death-dealing hours, both men told me at a young age, at least I'm not a fucking bootlicker. At least I'm not shining somebody else's boots. There's nothing wrong with learning from people, and there's nothing wrong with bootlicker positions for a while. But man, the thing about a salary, you get a salary in the 100,000 to 500 range and above, right up to $500,000. That's where people sell out their dreams. That's where a super talented person who's making 150K or 300K, they could be working on Wall Street making $500,000, but they're still licking boots. It's just corporate boots. And there's no amount of money that I would ever take to be a slave to somebody else's company, to be in a situation where I'm building somebody else's world or dream. No damn way. For me, it's about personal sovereignty. It's about autonomy. And you got to watch for these traps when you're working for somebody else. If you're making 30 grand a year like I was in the insurance business, but you're working for yourself, that's great. That's called paying the price. When I was making 40 grand, 50 grand and working like a slave, that's different. I was working for myself. I was building my own world. But man, to take that money, 100 grand, 120, you get the benefits, and the next thing you know, it's just too safe. You fall for the safety, and the next thing you know, you're in a business. Next thing you know, you're in a business that you hate, and you're making just enough money, and you've got just enough security that you just can't say, fuck this, I'm gone, I quit. And that's the most dangerous position to be in. Is that position where you're comfortable and you're safe, but you have these entrepreneurial dreams, And maybe this is one of your kids or one of your grandkids down the road where it's the most dangerous time in their career. So, not a lot of consultants talk about this stuff, but man, when you have a dream, you can get trapped, you can make a prison for yourself, and all of a sudden, your dream of building your own company, chasing your own dreams dies on the vine, because instead of becoming a badass and chasing freedom and control and personal sovereignty, you're just like, man, that paycheck is good. I don't care how much money you make working for somebody else. You can't get wealthy. You can't get rich. You can maybe get comfortable. You'll work until you're 65, 70 years old. You might parachute out, but you know what the magic number is now? And this is something nobody else would tell you, but if you're gonna stop working without a pension, if you're gonna stop working, so in other words, you're not a school teacher, you're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, you don't work for the government, you're not a bureaucrat. I say the number's 10 million. If you're gonna retire at 55, at 60, and you're not gonna earn any more, you're just gonna retire, you better have $10 million cash in the bank. Because take it from me, when you're not working and you're not bringing in any income, all you end up doing is spending. And I don't care what the market's doing for your money, I don't care what return you're getting, you better make sure you've got $10 million saved up if you want to stop working completely. Maybe you're like me, maybe you're like my dad, you'll never stop working, and that's different. But just to stop it off with no income, an entrepreneur better sell their business. You better bank, and the number I see now in 2024 is a minimum $10 million. And people laugh at that. They're like, oh, that's more than enough. I could listen, if I want to maintain my lifestyle and I want to stop working with wife, with children, with all the other stuff, a couple of homes and all this other stuff, 10 million is the magic number for most entrepreneurs. And working for somebody else just guarantees that you'll build somebody else's dream. It guarantees you'll never be wealthy. You might even be comfortable. You've made 150 grand or 250 grand a year, but you sold your soul. You sold your soul for somebody else's dream. You might even have a pension that takes you but you gave your best years to somebody else. You gave your best years. Who cares if you're 60 or 65 and you parachute out of there, but now you're too old. You're too old to start something. You're too old to do your own thing. You've been working for somebody for too many years. So just make sure that you, your children, your grandchildren never get trapped by a salary that's too good to walk away from. That's the reason. That's the reason they pay just good enough. Well, you got vacation time, you got a company car, it's $250K, pension at the end. But I have this dream of running my own show. And it's just all of a sudden you're married, you got children, you got a house, you got 2 cars. All of a sudden responsibility comes along. And this is the kind of stuff I'm talking to my 11-year-old about all the time. Freedom isn't free. Personal sovereignty isn't free. You got to have brass balls. You got to have mental toughness. You got to be able to live simple. You got to be able to save money, and you got to be willing to go as hard as you can for a minimum 10 years to build anything in business. And a lot of times it'll take a lot more than 10 years. And that's the message we need to be bringing to our young people. It all comes down to the end. Slave and corporate bootlicker building somebody else's life and business, or reaching for those stars and being a badass. A badass lives life and does business on his or her own terms. You can't do that unless you're an entrepreneur who works for you. There's a list below of all my entrepreneurial products. Below, if and when you're ready, the entrepreneurial products. If you want to work with me directly, there's some options below. Everything from my book, my newsletter, my Done For You email program with Marc Andre, my Email Millions Mastermind, and some other stuff below. If and when you're interested, just click on those links for more details. Man, I took my grandfather's advice and I took my father's advice from a very early age, and I pray that my daughter will take my advice as well. The key to freedom, the key to control, the key to independence and autonomy, 2 words, personal sovereignty. The way to make it happen is badass entrepreneurship. Building your own personal and professional life where you can live life and do business on your own terms. You can never, ever, ever accomplish that working for somebody else. We get one shot at it. We get one opportunity. I'm going to make sure that I'm building my world, not somebody else's. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that can change yours. Be relentless.